Hello, here's the first video I'm doing concerning Frankenstein, our first text that we're reading for extension. If you haven't watched the first video yet, which is like an overview of the course and the text and the assessments that are in it, can you go back and watch that one first? Okay, I'll just talk a little bit about Frankenstein and the opening part of Frankenstein. So I've got this tattered old volume here from school. This has been used for study quite a bit in the past. It's quite an old copy, going back about 20 years, it would seem. Frankenstein has been used as a text for extension recently, but it was on the advanced course for a long time as well, in different modules and different electives. And that's a good thing because it means that there's a lot of study material out there. I've already posted the lit guide for you on the Google Classroom, which is quite extensive. And it has a lot of the basic background information about the time and the author and everything. Stuff that I won't necessarily go over. I'm not systematically going to go over it, like bits and pieces of that will pop up as we're going along. But you really ought to read that for background. Because you'll catch a lot of things that I might miss actually telling you. That's the nature of the extension course. You have to be independent and do a lot of this reading yourself. I can't teach you every single thing there is to know about the book. I don't know every single thing about the book. I never will. So you need to, the more of that reading you do, the better informed you'll be to do well. So please do that. Okay, so as mentioned, you can pick a copy of this up from school. You can pick up any other copy as well. The only thing is that when I talk about page this or that, obviously it'll be a reference to this book, to this edition. Okay, so Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. The book opens with some letters. Now I think there's 4 letters. And these 4 letters are written by a certain Captain Walton to his sister, who is called Mrs. Seville. Okay, Captain Walton, when he's writing these letters, he's undertaking a voyage to the North Pole regions. He starts off writing the letters from St. Petersburg in Russia, and then the later letters are. He's already on the boat and voyaging, and he sends the letters back with sailors coming back in the other direction. Now there's 4 of these letters at the start, and the structure of the novel is that while Captain Walton is out on this voyage, he sees Frankenstein's monster, and then he sees and talks to Frankenstein, who's the main character of the book. And so the story we read, we're meant to understand that it's the story that Frankenstein told Captain Walton. Okay, and Captain Walton has written it all down, and he's recording it to inform his sister, Mrs. Seville, of the story. So the actual story is bookended at each end by these letters, because these letters reappear starting at page in my book, page 202 again. And it says, "Oh, my dear sister, you've read this. You've read this amazing story that I've just told you for the last 170 pages or something like that. But it's a story which he's relaying because Frankenstein has told him on his ship." Now we have a word for what is a book. Structured through documents. Okay, so we have the letters that bookend the book, and then we have this middle part which is sort of Walton writing down what Frankenstein has said. It's called epistolary. Okay, it means a story which is made up from documents, which could be typically letters, but also like diary entries, emails, Snapchats, whatever. I don't know if anyone's done one in the latter style. Okay, Now, we can learn a lot about the sort of time and the context from these letters. Okay, Captain Walton, before he meets Frankenstein, he's talking about how it's his fate, it's his burning desire to explore the world. And he's sort of got this internal, unshakable confidence that he's going to be a great success. Okay, so as we read these initial letters, we read things like, I may there discover the wondrous power which attracts the needle, talking about the North Pole and magnetism, and may regulate 1,000 celestial observations, and require only this voyage to render their seeming eccentricities consistent forever. So it's geographic exploration, but it's also scientific exploration. And that scientific exploration is probably the major theme in the book, okay, as we learn about the story of Frankenstein and his monster. He says, Captain Walton, these are my enticements, and they are sufficient to conquer all fear of danger or death, and to induce me to commence this laborious voyage with the joy a child feels when he embarks in a little boat. So this is part of the age of discovery, when European people primarily were sailing all over the world for trade, for exploration, for scientific, just got a cat here, for scientific endeavour. And there was a great sense of optimism around those things, a great sense that science was unravelling its mysteries to people, that those mysteries could be understood, and that the world was getting better through wealth creation, through trade, through science, through exploration, and essentially through conquering what had hitherto been unknown. And so Captain Walton really represents that exploratory spirit of science of the time in this age of exploration. Okay, and I've just picked out a couple of quotations there, but there are so many other quotations which would, which illustrate that sort of idea as well. Okay, he talks about his dauntless courage and all sorts of things like that. Captain Walton talks a little bit about his early life in England. He talks about the crew that he's taken on to do this North Pole voyage. I think he mentioned somewhere that he's also trying to find a new sailing route. Okay, because part of the problem up here, which becomes apparent very soon, is that the seas freeze over during winter and ships can get stuck and they can't navigate. And so at this time, they were always looking for the best way through around the icebergs and around the ice, depending on the season, because trade, international trade could only be done by ships, obviously. And so being able to do that as quickly and safely as possible was a commercial advantage at a time when sailing is very, very dangerous and people are dying left, right and centre from storms and from disease and from all the dangerous things that happen on boats. Even to this day, people who do deep sea fishing on boats, it's pretty much the most dangerous job that you can do. It's much more dangerous than other things that we consider dangerous, because the ocean is just such a dangerous thing. A nice connection there to our advanced text, Past the Shallows, as well, if you've started listening to my videos on that and reading that book, which I'm sure you have. So he talks about his conception of the trembling sensation that when he was preparing to depart. He talks about this is page 19 on my book, my passionate enthusiasm for the dangerous mysteries of the ocean, okay, and all of this sort of thing. But there was this idea that man could conquer nature, by degrees. Now, letter 4 is where it gets interesting. Letter 4 is where the story actually starts. Okay, the first 3 letters are just sort of by the by. They're not really important for the story. Okay, and he talks about what he sees one Monday, July the 31st, he says it happens. It was foggy, okay, the ship was nearly surrounded by ice, so there's that sense of danger and trepidation being set up there. And he says the first thing he saw, and this is about halfway down page 23, we perceived a low carriage fixed on a sledge and drawn by dogs pass on towards the north, at a distance of half a mile, about 800 metres, a being which had the shape of a man but apparently of gigantic nature sat in the sledge and guided by the dogs. We watched the rapid progress of the traveller with our telescopes until he was lost among the distant inequalities of the ice. Okay, that's the monster. Okay, the monster is not given a name in the book. We can call it the monster or the creature or the fiend. Frankenstein is the inventor of the monster. Frankenstein, Victor Frankenstein, is the scientist, the man who creates the monster, and gets into increasingly a lot of trouble for doing that. So I'm going to call him the fiend from now on. So Walton sees the fiend and his men, and then a few hours later, I think about 2 hours later, they see Frankenstein stalking the fiend, trying to catch the fiend, but the fiend is long gone. And Frankenstein is described on page 24 as he was not as the other traveller seemed to be, a savage inhabitant of some undiscovered island, but a European. And so Frankenstein, half dead, is dragged up onto the boat, and he takes a couple of days to sort of recover himself. And then he promises to tell Walton an extraordinary story. Okay, he says, I don't think I highlighted this passage, but he basically tells Walton that the story I'm going to tell you, people wouldn't believe it. People would think it was marvellous. I think marvellous is the word used. Marvellous as in a marvel, as in a miracle, as in something that you couldn't believe unless you saw it, I suppose. But he's going to tell him this story anyway. Now, Walton and Frankenstein get talking, and Walton starts to, while Frankenstein is getting his health together and getting ready to tell the story, Walton starts telling Frankenstein about his endeavours, to acquire knowledge and to explore and all of this sort of thing. But then Frankenstein has a strong reaction to this. Halfway down page 27, Frankenstein says to Walton, "Unhappy man, do you share my madness? Have you drunk also of the intoxicating draught? Hear me, let me reveal my tale, and you will dash the cup from your lips." So in other words, Frankenstein is saying there are dangers to all this science and all this exploration, and there's dangers to seeking knowledge when that's all that you care about. And that is really the theme of the book. Okay, it's about how far you can push science and knowledge and invention without thinking about the consequences or the moral dimensions of it before you get into a lot of trouble. And then that sets the scene for the proper start of the book, which is chapter 1 on page 31. And starting there, Victor Frankenstein starts to tell his story from the start, okay? More or less going back to when he was born. So that's a little look at the letters at the start of Frankenstein. Very interesting, but only they're the sort of the catalyst for the book, for the story, not the story itself. Okay, so you need to make a start on reading that. I'll post some guidance on the Google Classroom about how much I want you to read at a time. And the next time I do a video, the chapters aren't super long in this book. I'll probably do a video that sort of covers chapters 1 to 6, maybe something like that. Okay, can you get in touch with me if you need anything, or if there's any issues? We'll do a Zoom in week 2 during the normal extension time, Wednesday 1:30. I'll put the details of that up as well. Okay, I hope to talk to you soon. Bye-bye.